If you're watching this on release day, then tomorrow, Saturday the 23rd of April 2022, is the 40th birthday of the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. Sir Clive's Wonderbox did a lot for home computing and even more for home video gaming, not least giving us Brits a 40-year-long chance to be smug at any American who mentions some kind of fictional video game crash. As I understand it, the story supposedly goes that someone got rushed into developing a game called BT and it ruined video games until Ian Nintendo came along and saved video gaming by charging them $40 for Tetris. The point is, gaming continued unabated in the UK through this period, due in no small part to the Spectrum, even if Sir Clive was never entirely thrilled that people used his lovely, serious business computer in this fashion. And a very large number of people in Britain and the wider world whose games you now play, whose software you now rely on, and yes, whose videos you now watch, got their start with a black or grey box with Sinclair written on it. One of those people, dear viewer, was your correspondent. At Christmas 1986, our family was delivered of a Spectrum Plus 2 from Dixon's. This was the classic Power 6 pack, which many people got with their Spectrums at the time. All these games are at least interesting in some form, and maybe we'll go through them for the 41st, but in reality none of them were the first game I ever played. I don't know if it was a Dixon's offer, or just my dad picking something interesting off the shelf, but we had two more games. One of these I remembered well over the next decades. Grumpy Gumphrey Super Sleuth from Gremlin. I recommend it. It's a lovely unique game where you're the luckless security guard in a department store being bossed around by pretty much everyone. The game usually ended for me when your boss demands alcohol, and as a result the controls go absolutely to pot, which was hilarious age 6. But I know it wasn't the first game I played. And for years after bits of the collection had found their way to boot sales and all those other methods of attrition you now bitterly regret, I had no idea what it was or even how to find out. It was really only in 2019 when I started making Yesterzine, YouTube's 5th most popular show about old gaming magazines like and subscribe now, that I actually thought to really investigate the matter. All I could remember is that I thought it was some sort of fairly colourful shooting game, and that, as I recall, the name began with M. Thankfully, in the intervening time, the internet turned up, and so did sites like Spectrum Computing and World of Spectrum, which itself is now two competing sites because drama. Looking through that archive, idly scrolling through the M's, I happened upon a 1985 release from Gremlin, the publisher of Gumphrey, and the inlay and screenshot were instantly familiar. My first video game was Metabolis by Chris Carey. And here's where the stakes are raised, dear viewer, because I still forgot to play the thing. I remember loving Metabolis as a kid, but competition, when it's your first ever video game, is, by definition, nil. I haven't played it in probably over 30 years. What if I hate it? What if it's self-evidently awful? What if it somehow turns out to be racist or something? But it's the 40th anniversary of the machine, and so it's time. What does 41-year-old me think of this, my first ever video game? And somehow it felt right to watch it load in from tape, just as I would have had to have done on my Plus 2. While we're doing so, we're going to recreate this experience properly. We are going to read the manual. Pausing only to say that's a hell of a frustrated comic book artist of a title screen, isn't it? That bird's got more abs than 90s boy group 5, a reference both too old and too new for this video. That's our title character too, apparently. We've been turned into a bird with the brain of a human for reasons. Reasons I'm really hoping aren't sexual. It was a mistake by our enemies, the Kremin, though, because it leaves us able to bust up their shit. Our goal is twofold. First, we have to search the domain for the antidote, which, 1, for some reason they've bothered developing, and 2, have for some reason apparently just left lying around. We will then find a bunch of nuclear bomb ingredients they have also left lying around, and blow up their shit on the way out. The one other thing we're going to need is our only weapon, the boomerang, which is apparently poisonous because this is an 80s video game and things do not have to make sense. In a neat plot twist, we've apparently been the ones to leave this lying around. Initial impressions are very promising. It's not a terribly common thing for a Spectrum game to have a console-style attract loop, but this one does, albeit one where the character doesn't move and the music appears to be the end boss of dubstep. It also becomes obvious the character's title screen picture is absolutely the one your average Fathers for Justice member uses on Tinder. Nonetheless, your dad and I share a goal. It's to stick our boomerang in something, and the controls are classic Spectrum QWOPK, so let's go! Oh. So it turns out I didn't read the controls properly. It actually uses Q and W for left and right, O for up, and K for fire once you find the boomerang. Which would be quite the relearn for someone actually used to classic Spectrum controls. Thankfully, neither 1986 nor 2022 Dudley has a huge amount of Spectrum muscle memory going on, so off we go searching for the boomerang, which I can't find. What we do see though is that the enemies are weird designs at best. Whoever the Kremin are, they're certainly not going in for any kind of uniform. On the plus side, if there's no AI in this, then Chris has done a good job faking it. The enemies are just hanging about until they see you, and then they will hunt you down like a working McDonald's ice cream machine. I toddle around finding no weapon, but having a really lovely time. My fears of this being a complete loss are long since assuaged. This is nice work for a still early Spectrum title in 48 kilobytes. Yeah, we've got no music or anything, but the controls are spot on, the enemy's clever, and this map has quite the variety. In fact, since I'm well lost and about to die, I thought I'd go look up a map to see where that boomerang is hiding. And crikey! The game is 150 screens. I knew that much from the inlay, but it's amazing to see how big that is in practice, again inside 48 kilobytes. The boomerang is in fact this skull up here, known in the trade as the license to kill. So off we trot and collect it, which proves simple enough. Figuring out how the boomerang works less so. It fires in the direction you're moving only when you're moving in that direction, and then has a life of its own for a while before returning, which is awkward. Not least because you may have detected there is no control for going down. So you can't fire down in a game where you start halfway up the map and frequently have to travel downwards towards enemies who respawn. Then again, this was never going to be a twin-stick shooter. The whole heart attack thing is confusing to me though. I'm dying not because of health, I proved that during this game, but through simply randomly expiring. And unsurprisingly, googling Metabolis and heart attack is not returning results related to a 37-year-old video game. A few unlucky 37-year-old humans though. I should probably go for more walks.
The essence appears to be that you need the pill pots dotted around the world to stave off heart attacks for a few minutes each. Pretty grim, now I think about it. It does mean that Metabolis suffers a little from something I've mentioned as a personal gripe before. Multiple failure states. Like Zool, which has lives, health, time and collection, health would absolutely be enough here, especially as there's a smattering of objects that are insta-kills. It doesn't need the additional time pressure, especially when the exact amount of that pressure is obfuscated from you.
I looked into pokes and it appears the only one anyone ever made was just for straight invulnerability, and I might look into giving that a go and just turning this into a maze game, but really I'd like to just remove the heart attacks from the equation. These are minor gripes though. As possible first games go, I'm calling this one a winner. Metabolis is interesting and surprisingly deep for its avoid 'em up exterior. The map is large, but varied, and even just from an hour or so of nostalgic noodling, I'm already learning much of the layout of the original area. As a child with many more hours to throw at this, I could probably get a lot further, if I could figure out the stuff the manual hides from you. It's a game that's much more interesting than a cursory glance might imply. What's interesting is how the reviews went. Metabolis did not review especially well. Sinclair User basically didn't play it. The review admits he didn't find the wizard and never figured out what syringes do. Well, syringes grant temporary immunity. You can tell by how the things aren't hurting you. And the wizard? Literally 2 screens right of where you start the game, albeit only appearing after you successfully regain your human form. Bill Scolding, named exactly after what he deserves, is only saved from a 73% trials jail sentence by the fact that Sinclair User at the time marked out of 5. Your Sinclair predecessor, Your Spectrum, was even ruder, and describes wizards and boomerangs plural, which the game does in fact not have. All 3 reviewers give it 2 out of 5, although the review of one of those extends to 18 words total, of which 4 relate to the game in any fashion. So this time it's Crash that nails it for me.
I've been a little slow to appreciate this game. At first it looked very ordinary. It wasn't long before I realised what a lovely game it is. The bird is superb, the rooms within the maze are fantastic. One genuinely can't wait to see what's around the next corner. Metabolis should provide hours of fun for the cartographers. This isn't going to be an easy game to solve, mostly because it's all too easy to make a mistake. But having said that, it's pure fun with only a touch of frustration. My only disappointment was with the sound. Search this one out.
And giving it 87%. They're right. This is more than it seems on the surface. While there's an element of trial and error to it, what it's not is a Rick Dangerous game where things are not consistent and the game tricks you in ways you couldn't possibly avoid through skill. Actually, that's not quite true. There is one. The reversing serum room has 4 unexplained options and only one of them will actually work for you. But that's just the point that makes you realise that, batshit though this game is a lot of the time, it's surprisingly fair for a 1985 8-bit maze game. Broadly, this is a game with consistent, if not always obvious, internal rules, and that once you know what you're doing, can beat in a little under 12 minutes. And if the run-through from RZX Archive is anything to go by, the last third of that is your daring escape having set the bombs off. Which is another good point. This is a game with, effectively, 3 phases. Become human, find the fuel, and set off the bomb and get out of dodge. Maybe I'm letting a bias show here, because obviously I was hoping to like Metabolis, having returned to it, and I can absolutely see what the obsessive 6-year-old nerd found in the thing. It's a genuinely interesting game, with a surprising amount in common with today's large open worlds. Remove the extraneous heart attack mechanic, add some side quests, and mildly cook the graphics, and this is a game that could stand to be an indie release today. It wasn't better than, say, Manic Miner in 1985, but in 2022 it has aged better than that has, and a lot of other Spectrum games. So thanks to Chris Kerry, to Gremlin, and to Sir Clive himself. My journey back 36 of the 40 years the Spectrum has been on this planet worried me, but it needn't have, because I see why a game I would now describe as weird and intriguing captured a 6-year-old who was at least one of those things. Happy birthday, Spectrum. Same time next year?